Margaret Preston, president of Over Parkinson's, and today, in conjunction with our POP Profile series, we have Melanie Lomaglio, doctor in physical therapy. She's also board certified in neurology by the American Physical Therapy Association. Melanie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are so excited to kind of have this time with a real PT out of the clinic and throw questions at you that I know our listeners will be really excited to hear. So if you're ready, let's get started.
I'm definitely ready. It's my favorite topic.
So share with our listeners a little bit about your background and what led you into the specificity of Parkinson's disease.
Sure. I get asked this question a lot, and I don't have like some profound answer for people. I have been a physical therapist for 25 years, and shortly after I graduated, I did a little bit of home care. And I remember treating people with Parkinson's disease. And this was actually out in Hawaii. And one gentleman sticks out in my mind, even though this is going back so long ago. He was Japanese, didn't speak English. Obviously, I did not speak Japanese. And went into his home, and he was pretty much confined to his bed because he had such severe freezing. And I knew right away what was going on with him. And I remembered things I learned at school about visual cues to help people with their freezing of gait. And I made train tracks, and I kind of laid all these train tracks out throughout his house, like bed to bathroom and bed to kitchen. And it was like this instantaneous, dramatic improvement in his quality of life. And he was actually able to start walking again, like within one session, just giving him the right tools to help him overcome his freezing. And from that patient onward, I was fascinated by the brain and Parkinson's disease. And so I just kept learning, and I just, fell in love with the population. And for me now, it's like, there's just no going back. I mean, I'm so integrated into the community, and there really is, we just are like a family. It's like, these aren't just my patients, they're my people. And we're connected, and we have baby showers, and it's a real community. And I feel very lucky to have found something that I'm so passionate about. And I feel like I'm a role model for a lot of the younger clinicians, because here I am, like I said, been a therapist for 25 years, and I still love going into the clinic every day. And it's because of the people and the impact that I can make. That's pretty quick and dramatic, and then creating these long-lasting relationships. So yeah, I feel very lucky to do what I do.
Well, moving on to doing what you're doing, you lead an awesome wellness center, Parkinson's Wellness Center, STARS.
Yes.
Encompasses so many meaningful services, including PT, speech therapy, of course, balance and fall prevention. So walk us through the genesis of how STARS was created and where you are today with it.
Sure. So I moved to St. Augustine, Florida for a faculty position. So I spent 12 years in academia. And when I started teaching, and when I first moved here, I wanted to get involved with the community. And so I went to a Parkinson's support group, and shortly thereafter was asked to sort of take over the facilitation of the support group. And I was super excited about that opportunity. And then I started a community exercise class at the university with my students. And around the same time, my husband opened STARS Rehab. He was like an N of one kind of a thing. And we had about 8 hours every week that we were allowed to practice in the clinic as a faculty member. And so I used that to treat people with Parkinson's. And this kind of over time realized that I just wasn't providing the service or the level of care that I wanted to for the community, and kind of took the leap away from my faculty position and just jumped full-time into clinical practice, and wanted to create this unique space where people with Parkinson's could feel comfortable and, meet other people with Parkinson's, and again, create this community and network of resources. And I also, along the way, had taken a course called POWER, it's PWR, Parkinson's Wellness and Recovery Program. Dr. Becky Farley is the physical therapist and neuroscientist behind that program. And her program sort of changed my thinking in the way people with Parkinson's are managed. And that, it's a condition that even though it's considered progressive, there's still so much you can do to live your best life and sort of mitigate the symptoms. And this idea that we can end stage Parkinson's disease through physical therapy and exercise and community. And so I wanted that vision for our community here. And so I created a space. We started off with a very small space, kind of in the corner of our clinic. And then we were able to take over a suite next door, and we've got 1,000 square feet. And I designed it with Parkinson's in mind. So the entire floor is like Pilates mats, which allows us to get down on the floor. We do a ton of floor work. Got all kinds of different special equipment. We have harness systems for people who have fear of falling or balance issues. So we can work with people, what I call like a fall-free environment to sort of overcome fear of falling. So a track system, and then, we have the support group. It's kind of a one-stop Parkinson's shop, I call it. So we've got the rehabilitation side of things, which is our bread and butter, obviously, as a physical therapist. Then we have the wellness program and the support group. And the wellness program is funded by the Parkinson's Foundation. So a couple of years ago, I applied for a grant for the Parkinson's Foundation, really not knowing if I was going to receive it or not. I heard it was very competitive, and I did get it. And now we're just completing our second year and hoping for a third year. So we're waiting to see if we get funded again for like the July through June timeframe. And that grant has allowed us to really expand our wellness programming. So most of what we do is offered at no cost. It's a nonprofit program. So there's no barriers financially for anyone to participate. And it's just been wonderful to watch the program grow and see people make friendships and relationships, and hold each other accountable for coming and exercising and being part of a group.
Well, you've certainly touched on a lot of different areas, but in your own words and more a direct question, share with our listeners what really sets STARS off from traditional PT settings, and ultimately, what are your goals for the center?
Yeah, well, I think STARS in general, I mentioned my husband started STARS 14 years ago, was a traditional physical therapy practice. And then I sort of created this little niche or boutique specialty practice kind of off to the side that's very different and very unique. I would say there's really just a handful of clinics that operate like I operate our Parkinson's Wellness Center, in the country. Unfortunately, that needs to change because we need them in every town.
Yeah.
As you know, Parkinson's is on the rise. But it's different in that there's very few physical therapists that devote their entire clinical practice to helping people with Parkinson's disease. And we are, St. Augustine is not a big city. We obviously have a large retirement community because we're in Florida, but even for the size of our city, being small, I have 4 physical therapists now that all specialize in Parkinson's disease and a speech therapist. So there's a huge need. All of our therapists sort of go through a mentorship program to learn how to manage Parkinson's disease. It is such a complex condition, and every person has unique needs that we take pride in really knowing as much as we possibly can about Parkinson's disease to meet everybody's needs. And that is very different than most outpatient physical therapy practices where, a therapist might specialize in necks and backs or shoulders and knees. And they might encounter someone with Parkinson's disease and don't really look at them through the right lens. So just because, your doctor told you need physical therapy, you kind of have to shop out the right physical therapist, just like you shop out your doctors. And your cardiologist does not treat your Parkinson's disease, your neurologist or movement disorder specialist does. Your cardiologist might know a little bit about Parkinson's disease, but they're not going to be the ones that really provide the best care for you because they're not specialized. And the same thing goes for physical therapy. So it's really important that you try to find a physical therapist that has some understanding of Parkinson's disease and has a passion for it to really get the best level of care.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. Two takeaways from that: ensuring you find the right physical therapist that truly specializes in Parkinson's. And also what you said, STARS truly is a niche Parkinson's boutique, if you will, so that you can look at every nook and cranny of the disease. So I think it's a great philosophy because it allows you to see everything, not just a symptom or a subset of symptoms based on a specialty. So I think that's a fantastic differentiator.
Yes, it's so important. And even within our Parkinson's practice, for the wellness program, we have different levels of different challenge levels in our exercise classes because, somebody who's using an assistive device who absolutely needs to be exercising isn't well suited to exercise along somebody who can still do jumping jacks and burpees.
Right.
We have that sort of differentiation that has to occur inside of, the center that, everyone has Parkinson's disease kind of a thing. Everyone has different and unique needs inside of it.
Well, speaking of differentiation, I do want to note that the STAR Center has a highly trained facility dog, Harley, who works alongside patients, making it really fun and engaging for them. So, and I think Harley might be able to make a guest appearance.
Here, he was already sleeping. Here, Harley.
Tell us about what a Parkinson service dog, or generally what Harley does and what he brings to the center.
Here he is. So Harley brings lots of love and kisses. So he's always there to greet people at the door when they come in. He's like the first thing that people see. And I don't know, he's got this unique ability to connect, even with people that are cat lovers, if you will.
Yeah.
So people that don't necessarily like dogs always end up loving Harley. So, he's number one, he puts smiles on people's faces, and they always want to say hi to him as soon as he comes in the door. And so that's one of his first roles, is just to greet people. And he just really gives people a sense of ease, especially for those that are newly diagnosed or it's the first time coming there. It's been, maybe they were nervous about coming and seeking out help for the first time. He's a distractor. Like,
yeah.
I don't have to talk about my Parkinson's right away. We can talk about this amazing dog. So that's one of his roles. And then, depending on the person and, their interest level in dogs, we will engage him actually in the therapy sessions. So Harley knows several exercises that we often do with patients. He's got his own version of the exercises, but one of them is called Power Up. It's for posture. And it's really just kind of like a squat. And then you stand up tall and you give your best posture. And Harley gets up on his hind legs and does his Power Up. And so the person with Parkinson's has to give Harley a command using a loud voice. And Harley is lazy by nature. So if you don't give a loud commanding voice, he's not going to listen. So it's like, you got to speak up and remember the commands. So, and then it's just so fun because then they're kind of doing the same exercise together.
Yeah.
And there he is barking at the door. So then you have to do it 10 times. So Harley, Power Up, Harley, Power Up. And so it's like repetitions in your exercise right alongside of him. So he's got like a repertoire of about 4 exercises, different exercises that he can do with people. And then, he does just fun things like he'll bring someone a walking stick or a stability pole, carry it in his mouth. And we have a special little routine that we do for people who have freezing of gait, where we'll create like an obstacle course in the room, and they have to be really kind of put under a stress situation because stress is a trigger for freezing. And then they have to sort of remember their strategies to overcome their freezing while managing Harley. So I'll give them the leash. They have to remember a series of commands like Harley, let's go, Harley, sit. And then they'll pick something up off the floor and then they have to give it to Harley to hold in his mouth. So it would be like Harley, get, and then Harley, let's go. And then Harley, sit. And then they have to hold a basket for him and say, Harley, drop. And so the object that he's holding in his mouth, he has to drop. And then they have to move on, find it, the next object in the room to go get it together with the dog. And they have to practice turning and squatting and commanding the dog all at the same time. And we usually create these crazy obstacle courses, and the goal is to navigate the whole thing without freezing. So that's kind of a unique thing that we do with Harley, and it just makes it fun too, you know. So he just really, even simple things like Harley, speak, and just getting him to bark on command and shake, and so there's something for each person. It doesn't have to be a full exercise, or it could be just Harley visit, and that's when he rests his head on your lap and you just pet him.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he brings not only the core stuff, the love, affection, the ease, but also truly a diverse therapeutical system where people are focusing on cognition, their loudness of voice, multi-step directions. So it's neat to see the dog kind of address a myriad of symptoms all in one exercise.
Yes. And sometimes it does go to the speech therapy sessions too. So our speech therapist will take them into a speech session, and then they can practice using their loud voice. With Harley.
That's so neat.
But yeah, he's pretty neat. I call him the world's only Parkinson's facility dog. I don't know any other dog that kind of works in the setting like he does. There's plenty of dogs that work in rehab settings, but nothing like what we do. So
well, we need to replicate him. He needs to he needs to kind of get some employees under him around the country.
But I should give a shout out to Canine Companions for Independence. That's the organization that trained him. So I can't take responsibility for all his greatness.
That's fantastic though. Well, talking about new patients coming in, walk us through what initial intake looks like and how are results ultimately measured over time when someone becomes part of the STARS program.
Yeah, so when somebody comes in, we start with a history and we sit down together, and it usually takes me a couple of sessions to do a full assessment of somebody, because to me, listening is the first most important step, is listening to somebody's story. I want the whole story. I want to know what led to your diagnosis, who you are as a person, what did you do for a living, what do you like to do in your life, what are things that maybe you've stopped doing because of your Parkinson's that you'd like to get back to doing. So what is your support system like? What is your social network like? And so I spend a lot of time just getting to know them, like probably 30 minutes of just talking. And then we go into our assessments, and, we look at coordination and balance and functional mobility. That's like the big thing as a physical therapist. So not just how you walk, but can you get up and down off the floor? How do you do getting up out of your chair? Do you need your hands to push up? Do you fall back into your chair? How do you enter your chair? A lot of people with Parkinson's have what I call the dreaded side sit, where they approach a chair and they don't quite complete the turn, and then they sort of just dump their butt into the chair. And so I'm looking at all of that in my assessment. And like I said, it usually takes 2 sessions to get everything looked at. And then we use objective measures. So I look at people's walking speed. I look at their walking endurance, like how far can you walk in 6 minutes, which is important just for community mobility. So if somebody can't walk continuously for 6 minutes, then they're not going to be able to access the community. So I look at walking over short distances, but also over long distances. And something that I get funny looks at often is, usually on day 1, I'm like, okay, when was the last time you were on the floor, either purposefully or accidentally? And sometimes it's, yesterday, or sometimes it was like years ago. And I make everyone get on the floor on that first day. So we look at, how they get on the floor. Do they need their hands? Do they use a chair? Do they need assistance to get up? Because that is something that older people in general stop doing, getting on the floor. And when people stop doing that, they just start to make their life smaller and smaller. And well, what about the grandkids that you want to play with, or the dog that you want to play with, or getting under the sink to fix something, or get those pots and pans out? So getting on the floor is so important as part of what we do as physical therapists, and being able to be confident in getting up and down off the floor, not only to keep your life as big as possible, but also in the event that you find yourself there accidentally due to a fall, that you've got the confidence to be able to get yourself up if there's no serious injury. And that helps with things like, fear of falling. So then we compare everybody's assessments to their norm values. So, what is your norm value for your walking speed or your ability to stand up out of a chair compared to somebody that's the same age, same sex, but doesn't have Parkinson's? And that kind of gives us a benchmark to kind of see where they're at. And most of the time, so for somebody who's sort of in the early to mid stage of Parkinson's, we set goals like, let's get you back to those norm values if you're off of them. And then, just depends where the person's at, but sometimes it's just making a personal goal of improving, not always back to a norm value, but maybe to lower your fall risk. Or maybe it's just, let's maintain you where you're at. Let's not let these numbers shift. And if they do shift, then we'd better do something about it.
Right.
So we measure that and we track it. For insurance purposes, we have to track it every 10 visits, but in general, we use a dental model. So I like to see people at least twice a year, sometimes more and sometimes less, depending on the individual and what their motivation is to do things on their own, or what their support system is like, or whether they're engaged in wellness programming or not. So you go to your dentist twice a year, no matter what, right? Whether you have a cavity or not, you go there to have, a checkup. And the same thing applies for your rehab specialists and physical therapies. Like, you should come and see your therapist for checkups twice a year.
Absolutely. So I love that you said in your initial intake, you do spend that 30 minutes getting to know the individual, because I presume that's kind of the inadvertent byproduct of that is setting goals, right? You've gotten to know them. You see where the delta is between the things they want to do, but the things they can no longer do. And you kind of make very specific goals based on the individual's likes and what they like to do in terms of activity and fun. So I think it's fantastic that you do get to know them in that way, because those specific goals based on the individual and what they want to get back to in their life can be made and ultimately attained. So I think that's a lovely takeaway as to why getting to know your physical therapist is so important.
Absolutely. And for some people, especially newly diagnosed or people that are younger, they start their medication and, they're able to keep doing all the things that they've always done. The goals might be a little bit different for that person. It might be just like self-management. Like, here's what you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can keep doing all these things that you're still doing. And I don't want you to stop doing them. So a lot of times people come to me wanting to reclaim lost activities. But the holy grail for me is to get them a diagnosis when they haven't stopped doing things.
Right.
To teach them self-management. And often a lot of physicians know and understand the importance of exercise, but they don't realize that most people are not exercisers.
Right.
And don't necessarily know what they should be doing or how they should be doing it. And it's physical therapists perfectly positioned to prescribe exercise. So not only just like rehabilitation and functional movement, but we prescribe exercise, tell you how much you should be doing, how often you should be doing it, and what type you should be doing.
Yeah.
You don't go to your neurologist and get a bottle of pills. They don't just throw you a bottle of pills and say, here, take this.
Right.
They give you a prescription. How much you should be taking, how often, and for how long. The same things should be applied for exercise. So, and really a lot of that applies to everybody, but especially the newly diagnosed who may still be doing all of those things that we had talked about.
Yeah, I think you've given a tool to our listeners in terms of being a self advocate. Talk to your physical therapist and say, what is my prescription for exercise? My neurologist probably just says, go exercise. But
Yes.
I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what I should do. So be a
Or
self
go for a
advocate,
walk,
work
start walking.
directly. Yeah, work directly with your physical therapist and say, I really would like, a plan, a prescription to exercise and what I need to be doing, something specific and something I feel like I can chew off versus just the overwhelming term exercise. And I don't even know where to start. So,
Yeah, it's such a broad term, and there's different types of
yeah.
exercise. Variety is the spice of life. But sometimes people are told just to go start walking, and walking is not the best way to get their heart rate up, because maybe they have that runaway train type of walking pattern that sometimes happen, that destination. And going out for a 20-minute or 30-minute walk can trigger that and lead to falls.
Right.
And if they're trying to walk fast, that can even make it worse. So for that type of person, I'd be like, okay, no, we're going to walk slow and mindfully for enjoyment, so you can smell the roses and visit neighbors. But your vigorous exercise to sort of fight off your Parkinson's, that we need to maybe do on the bike or on a rowing machine, or something where we're not going to put you at risk for falling.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's again where a physical therapist who knows the person and understands that person's unique needs or challenges can develop the right type of exercise. And so aerobic exercise is something we train everybody how to do. Again, we're not all coming from backgrounds of being runners or swimmers or athletes. And so most people don't have a history of aerobic exercise behind them. So we teach them a lot about what that means. And we do HIIT training, all ages, all stages. Even if you're 80 years old, you're going to do HIIT training when you come to Stars Rehab.
Yeah.
So, and because it's just, you meet the person where they're at. So sometimes we just start with 8 minutes. And we try to figure out, what is your background in exercise? What do you know about exercise? And then we figure out where to start you.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're going to be progressed over time. We don't ever want it to be overwhelming for the person. So we had to start at a manageable goal.
Yeah.
But then even within that 8 minutes, we'll alternate your intensity and teach you, how to monitor your exertion. And we use like the Borg scale, just like a simple, sometimes it's just like, are you like a green, yellow, red type of, like red is you're working so hard, you got to stop, like a stoplight, and yellow is you're working hard enough that you want to slow down, and a green is a pace you can kind of go forever.
Yeah.
So we have different ways depending on the person, how to measure their exertion. And then, but the goal of all that type of exercise is to get breathless. It's hard work. And we push people beyond what they would push themselves. And that's a really important takeaway too, is that you need that external, most people, not everybody, there's exceptions, but most people need that external coach or person to sort of bump them to the next level, push them beyond where they would push themselves.
Well, if we can switch gears over to cognition and cognitive impairment, of course, we know that's a big part of Parkinson's and a big part of some of the ways it presents in people with Parkinson's on the non-motor side. So what would you tell people who struggle with the symptom? And of course, involving care partners, because that's something I think care partners don't quite know how to mitigate or help. So who aren't really sure how therapeutical service can really touch those cognitive non-motor symptoms.
Yes. Yeah, and anxiety is another big one.
Yeah.
That I think can be, along with the cognition, but anxiety can be disabling. And all of these things that we talk about might not be going on in someone who's anxious.
Right.
Sometimes in their anxiety. So it's a really complex symptom that I try to work with the physician on. But as far as cognition, nobody likes to talk about it. It's one of the things that's sort of taboo.
Right.
We try to make it less so. We have the Parkinson's Foundation has so many different resource books. There's one on mood, there's one on cognition. I sometimes just start by giving them a book or giving the care partner a book. just so they can start learning about it. And then I usually tell people if they do mention it or if I'm noticing it, I try to tell them that there's a difference between like mild cognitive impairment and dementia. And just because you have some mild cognitive impairment, that doesn't mean you're going to develop dementia, because there's many people with Parkinson's that have mild cognitive impairment and it doesn't worsen, or it worsens at a very slow pace and never develops into dementia. And so I try to educate them on the difference between dementia and mild cognitive impairment. And that can be just like, okay, phew.
Yeah.
That's what they're all thinking, right? They're, oh my gosh, I'm so forgetful and I can't plan a vacation anymore. I'm going to get dementia. It's like, but that doesn't necessarily,
right.
That's what's going to happen.
Right.
It can happen for some people, but it doesn't mean it's your fate.
Mm-hmm.
And then our speech therapist is excellent at helping people with mild cognitive impairment, giving them strategy. She'll set up their cell phones with medication reminders, getting their brain stimulated. Socialization is important to help community engagement. She has a loud crowd and a singing group, which really helps stimulate. Yesterday, they were making paper airplanes, like not just regular paper airplanes, but like following complex instructions to make really complicated paper airplanes. And they had to do it with a partner, and they had to speak loud, work as a team. And those are things that are helping people's cognition, right? So use it or lose it, not only with your body, but with your mind, so staying engaged. And then aerobic exercise helps with cognition, helps kind of wake your brain up, helps flood the brain with oxygen and glucose and stimulate neuronal growth. So yeah, just staying involved, socially engaging, getting connected with a speech therapist or occupational therapist who does that type of work can be really helpful. Our speech therapist is just so invaluable to our program. And so I'm so thankful we have her, because they're, again, very rare.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you can shell out some advice, we'd love to hear it. What advice would you give to people with Parkinson's who are just unsure of how they will benefit from physical therapy? Maybe they think this is just how I am, or maybe it won't help me. Talk to us, give us kind of ease our worries for those folks who aren't sure how they would benefit from PT.
I think everyone would benefit from PT. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I think
but you're right. For those with PD, I think it's.
I think of Jimmy Choi, who is like just the ultimate Parkinson's warrior and super ultra fit. He's not a physical therapist,
right?
Michael J. Fox has
like beating burpees challenges and doing incredible things, and he still goes to PT.
Yes, and you might go to PT. You might see an ortho PT. Like you might have a couple of PTs that we work back and forth. If some of my patients develop an orthopedic problem, I don't try to treat that. I send them to somebody who understands orthopedics better. We kind of have that back and forth relationship. So, and if you're a person living with Parkinson's and you're unsure, just go and meet the person. Go onto their website, read their bio. Does their bio say anything about neurologic physical therapy or mention Parkinson's or look at their, it's really important that I would do your homework first, because you don't want to set yourself up for disappointment, and get with the wrong person.
Yes.
Because they still might try to treat you because they got the referral or whatnot. And then you're disappointed, and then you're kind of disenchanted by physical therapy. You got to do your homework, find your person. And if you're not happy, find another one. And then you want to develop that lifelong relationship. And that doesn't mean you're going to be in physical therapy all the time, but you should be bouncing in and out of therapy as your needs arise. And like I said, that dental model, even if you feel like you're doing fine, just check in with your physical therapist. You either need to progress your exercise program or top you up a little bit. I like to have a preventative approach. And it's not always what we have to work with, but again, my holy grail is it's easier to preserve what you have than to try to reclaim something you've lost, whether that be your posture or your balance. So don't wait. A lot of people wait. They don't think that they would benefit or that they don't really need it. I would love for you to change your mindset on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have
You've
a
given us some good, go ahead.
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
just
just
gonna
gonna
say,
be preventative.
yeah, you've given us some good takeaways as to what to look for in a physical therapist, but also the biggest one is don't wait until you need, right? Until you need physical therapy. Think about it as preservation of what you have now.
Yes.
So that's a great takeaway.
Yeah, and getting stronger and better. I mean, people
Absolutely.
improve.
Yeah.
My people, we had an exercise class yesterday and I invited some of the care partners.
Mhm.
And it was the care partners begging me to end the class. They were so tired. Like,
Oh, so this is what they do.
you have Parkinson's, you have nothing to complain about. Get
Yeah,
going.
right.
Yeah. So I tell my people, like, you are going to end up in the best shape of your life and you're going to outpace a lot of your peers.
Yeah.
If you are willing to work for it.
Put the work in it. Yeah.
Yes. And that goes for all of us.
Absolutely.
We all need to exercise more and be more active.
Absolutely.
So
that's great when the care partners can kind of like get a little taste of it and realize how hard their loved one's working, right?
yes.
We'll share with our listeners, for those who are just feel a little bit unsure about it, in terms of, I think you kind of touched on it, the longevity of a program, that but minimum kind of work on the dental plan. But those who are a little concerned, once I'm in, it's going to be forever. I'll have to go once a week until I die. So share with our listeners who are like, I just can't make the time commitment. It's going to be forever. Dispel that concern.
We will meet you wherever you're at. I mean, I really hope that my patients enjoy and value their time with me, that they would want to come see me forever, once a week. And some people are like that. So, and then there's others that aren't. So it really is so individual. Like, it's got someone who's working. I'm seeing an orthopedic surgeon right now who's working. He carves out time to come see me twice a week, but I know that's not going to be ongoing.
Right.
And I'm going to discharge him probably after 8 weeks. And then I'm going to be okay. I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then some people I'm like, oh, you're doing amazing. You're a super avid exerciser, following your home program to a T. I'll see you in a year. And then there's other people who are like, I sit on the couch when I'm not here. And so they need more frequent care because they're at risk for regression. So it's really whatever you need. Some people need it all of the time. Some people barely need it at all. And if, hopefully your physical therapist convinces you that you need each other for life. Yeah. And that you want to have that long-term relationship, just like you would with your family physician and your neurologist. Because we're going to get to know you the best and help you advocate for yourself. I'm constantly, have patients, I'm going to see the doctor on Monday. What should I tell them? And I help them generate their questions. And you need to make sure you talk about your off time and have that is really important. We become advocates for people.
Absolutely.
Between the person living with Parkinson's and their physician. Because a lot of times we know that person better. We're spending a lot more time with them.
Right.
We understand how their medications are working or not working, or breakthrough symptoms, and can communicate for them. So I don't want anyone to have hesitation. If you find the right physical therapist, that is a person you will want to establish a long-term relationship with. But again, if you're managing well on your own, then you might not need that therapist very often. But you can still check in with them. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I think that's great what you've touched on, because a physical therapist can truly just be another person in that person's corner, if you will. So it's kind of like, why not? You'd love to have another expert in your corner and a multifaceted care team. So I think that's great. As we can conclude, Melanie, share with our folks where they can learn about STARS and the work you're doing. And if they are local, they can knock on your door. Otherwise, for folks like us who are not local can still read about the exciting stuff you're doing.
You can go to www.starsrehab.org, and that's our website. And then there's a tab, called the Parkinson's programming tab, and it's got the wellness arm, the support group arm, and the rehab arm. And we do have some online classes too. Sometimes we have people from out of state that join us online. It's a little bit harder because again, we like to have that at least one face-to-face contact with people to evaluate them. But a lot of our snowbirds go back and forth. I think my ultimate dream is to get into a bigger facility and maybe grow that arm, the online portion of the arm. But for right now, we mainly service people locally in our community. Sure. Yeah,
absolutely. So we will, for our listeners, we will certainly provide that information for the website, but that does it for me, Melanie. So I can't thank you enough for shedding light on.
We have 5 more hours to talk about.
I know. I feel like we all just need to take a visit to see you and inundate you with visitors so we can see how we can replicate the center across the country, across the world, because you guys are doing amazing work. So I can't thank you enough for just being a voice.
Yes, anytime.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.